Hello everyone, and welcome to the second video of Module 3, Communication Techniques. So if you remember, in the previous video, we have looked at the components of a strategy, right? How to define your communication objectives, how to add a different layer of information to the stakeholders that we have already identified and prioritized, so that we have the tools to create, establish trustworthy relationships and deliver them the messages that we want. So what we are going to do today is to look at the channels and media and tools that we have available to better reach out to our target audiences. Ready? So I'll share my screen with you. Here we go. Okay, so you remember our image, right? The different range of tools that we have. Well, the first thing we need to start with is to understand the difference between traditional media and new media. So basically traditional media, it's all the mass media communication tools that existed at least 50 years ago, right? The new media is all the social media networks. So when we think about traditional media, we think about TV advertisements or radio advertisements or printed advertisements in newspapers and magazines, or even cinema advertisements. On new media, we are talking about digital networks, and indeed it can be paid because you can use AdWords or you can use Facebook to boost your publications, but it's a bit different from the traditional media. Let's look at the differences. So traditional media is normally very costly, so it costs a fortune to have a 30-second spot on a TV, and it's only one way. I mean, yeah, maybe there's thousands of people watching TV that moment, but you don't get any feedback from them. So it's one too many. Then the results are in short term, which can be good. So you know, okay, at least 50,000 people have watched that, have watched that TV show, so they might have seen my advertisement, but it's very hard to measure. However, for example, for an outdoor, it's more permanent and tangible. Well, on the other side, new media, well, it's much cheaper and accessible. It's at the end of everyone. It's much more interactive and engaging, and so you can establish this connection. It's not one to many, but it's more one to one. You can directly communicate with your customers or with your stakeholders if they write you a message on Facebook. But it's very time consuming, maybe in comparison with the others. You would commission a video spot and you would be done. Now you might have to need a communication specialist in your team to follow up and keep engaging and keep interaction with your audiences. But it pays off because it's highly measurable. You can exactly know which are the people you reach, how long have they stood in your website, for example, if we consider analytics, how many people liked, shared, retweeted your posts. But it also dissipates rapidly. So if we think about an Instagram feed or a Facebook feed or a Twitter feed, I mean, Twitter, every 2 seconds, there are 50,000 new publications, right? So it dissipates rapidly, but it's also searchable. And this is why we use hashtags, for example. And it does generate a word of mouth. So every time someone reshares my post, they are becoming an ambassador of the Europark Federation. And this is the new media are exactly what we'll be looking at in close. Why? Well, because population is shifting also. So we have seen that the use of internet has grown over the past years, and it will grow even more. In average, a person spends 6 hours and 43 minutes a day on connected. I mean, I think I use much more. Then many of them spend time on social media, and maybe not so many people are watching television anymore if we compare it with other periods of history. Right. So let's start with digital media. Which type of media work better on new media? So this is a very interesting statistics. It's about how much time people spend online doing what. Of course, this is American value, so some of them will probably not really adapt 100% to the European reality, but still it gives us a good overview. So if we consider that 90% of people between 16 and 64, they spend 90% on watching online videos, either on YouTube or maybe even in other platforms. And this is also interesting. This one. They listen to podcasts. More and more and more people are listening to podcasts. So let's look at some good practice for different tools. If we consider video, what is most important in video? Well, it's to focus on content value. And this means what? Means that you should be able to create consistent content. Don't let people forget that you are there. Publish every week or every 2 weeks or every month, indeed, if you think that video is the main key of your strategy, which might not be. But if you really want to invest in video, be consistent. Make sure that you have some quality. I mean, it doesn't have to be a super duper camera that you are using, but at least you should have a good audio, and this is something very easy. You should have a good and stable image. And well, some light, some basic light. Otherwise, it will be too hard to understand you, and people will just cut it off. And then surely, think about strategic content. So give the content that your audience is looking for. So, and this again, we fall into the purposes of communication. So think, what is the content that my audience wants, and how can I better convey that through videos? So, important tips. Adapt the duration of your film to the platform. I mean, statistics show that majority of people on Facebook watch less than 20 seconds of your video. So if you're publishing a 5 minutes video on your Facebook, maybe that doesn't make much sense. Use Vimeo or use YouTube, for example. But films are really, really important, and as more than ever, they are playing a vital role. So do bet on videos, but maybe short little ones, some animated graphics, some GIFs, something that lasts less than 1 minute, because psychologically, if a person sees like, oh, this will last 5 minutes, this is too much, I'll go. So you need to be thinking also on reducing. Then video quality might be important, but creativity counts much more, and focus on the content. You can be engaging, but you can also be fun and relaxed, and I'm sure this will give you some good tips. This video will be in your Moodle resources, so you'll be able to watch it. It provides you very good information. Well, from videos to podcasts. I mean, a podcast is a digital audio file that you find it on the internet or even on Spotify, and you can just listen to it. It's normally a series, or many times it's a series like the BBC Earth podcast, which is a very good one, but there are many others. Well, but don't go mad about podcasts if you don't have the resources to start one. You can just make a partnership with a local radio, and maybe it will be even more efficient for your own communication purposes. Right, then something that works pretty well is camera traps. When I used to work on a nature reserve, we had camera traps, and of course, every time there was a photo on social media from a camera trap, people would go just crazy. So this is a very good way to engage your audience, to show them the fauna of your protected area, or also the species that appear there once in a while. I mean, curious species can always be there. And well, there are many different ways of doing it. There are cameras who record with videos. There are cameras who only take photos. I always advise a mix of both. But yeah, just go to your conservation officer and ask them, well, are you using camera traps? Can we use it as well? Infographics. So infographics are basically condensed bits of information. They are meant to explain difficult concepts or break down very complex information by using graphics and numbers and things that people can visually get a clearer idea. Well, for example, Visme, they have an option that you can download the template, adapt the templates that they have there, and you can create your beautiful, shiny infographics. without much effort and without being a graphic designer. So do look for resources. There is a lot of resources out there that you can use. Then another thing that works pretty well on social media is online tracking maps. So for example, Rupish, this is a live project to protect this beautiful species. It's the Egyptian vulture, as many of you might know. And this is a migratory species. So he's in Iberia during summer and spring, and he goes down to Mali on winter time. So basically what they have done also to understand the behavior of the species as a conservation action that they then converted into a communication action. So they have used a GPS collar and they can trace where Rupish, this is Rupish, where Rupish is. And this obviously, it's an amazing storytelling. I mean, you say, okay, Rupish has just crossed Gibraltar. Yes, the most difficult part of his journey is crossed. So use all this, use video, use podcasts or camera traps or infographics or photos to create your story, an engaging story, and then share it on social media. Now, which social media platform should we use? Well, first we need to understand the difference in social media. We can have owned, paid, earn. So this is a bit complex, but actually it's not owned. It's your own institutional information, websites, blogs, even your Facebook accounts that just merge already here into the social platforms. And then you have the paid media. All these are like Google AdWords, banners, displays, paid endorsements. But this is not really important for someone working on a budget. So what we try to do is to generate enough organic contact or enough content, very good content, so that we can build organically our community. So we want to build trust, we want to educate, we want to share some relevant information for our audience. And so then they will be more likely to become loyal to us. And then certainly social media platforms are also there to help us. So create great own media, focus on earned and not on paid. I mean, of course, paid can also play a role. I mean, for example, for the promotion of Europark conference in Cairngorms National Park. There was a promotion on Facebook, and I'm sure many people came because they got to know about the event on Facebook. So there is no problem on using advertisement at all. It's just that don't think that you won't be successful if you cannot access to paid media. It's not how it works. It's actually better that you get people who really are interested to you. Don't buy likes. Just make sure that people who are in your page, following your page, really enjoys your content. Right, and then we have some statistics. Which social media should you choose? Well, based on the global statistics, Facebook is still on the lead, with almost 2.5 billion people using it. Surely the biggest growth of Facebook in the last years are not specifically in Europe, but in many other non-European countries, like in Africa and in Asia or in India, where they have really grew a lot. So right after Facebook, we have YouTube, WhatsApp as the preferred messaging tool. And then we have Instagram, we did down here, TikTok growing a lot in the last couple of years. TikTok is it's mainly used by the youngest generation, so kids up to 15, 16 years old, but it's getting more and more popular. And then Twitter, for example, it's very down on the list if we consider, but still they don't publish their information data. That's what's written here with this little font. So it might be that it's not really adjusted. So if we think on EU, and this was the only resource I could find, it's from 2017, so it might not be so accurate. I think by now Instagram grew much more, and LinkedIn also, because in the last couple of years, these two platforms have grown a lot. Still, Facebook will be the most used. Then, let's see, Facebook, it's still the most used, but who is using Facebook? So we can see that Facebook, most of them are female. And what is interesting is to understand the age rate. So here we'll find people from their 20s to their 30s, but you see the youngest ones are no longer on Facebook. So this is the natural evolution of social media networks. Kids were on Facebook, all the family went to Facebook, the aunts, the cousins, the parents. Oh, no, I cannot be here anymore. Okay, I go to Instagram. Now everyone is on Instagram, parents, aunts, uncles. So now they have moved to TikTok. And I think this will keep on going on like this for a couple of years more. But this is interesting. The main growth on users, actually, it's on this area between 50 and 64. This is the big growth in Europe of Facebook users. So Facebook would be good if you want to reach out to people between these ages. Right, Instagram. So certainly if they are not on Facebook, they are on Instagram. So you see here, this is the highest age. Of course, the aunts and parents are getting there, but still in a very low proportion. And definitely millennials and the Generation X, they are the ones leading on Instagram. And then Twitter, again, Twitter, we are never sure about the data, but they say it's majority between the 20s and 30s. Well, what I see, it's like, for example, in the UK, people tend to use much more Twitter as their day-to-day social media network, whilst in Portugal, maybe they use Facebook more, and there is not many people using Twitter unless they are journalists or politicians. So indeed, Twitter has a different users. What is interesting also to look at LinkedIn, and LinkedIn in the past 2 years have been growing a lot. And this is the preferred platform for people to talk about their work achievements or something that their employer has done. So this is interesting to think that, okay, your audiences might not be directly on LinkedIn, but maybe your employees, who are the best ambassadors of your organization, they can reach out to new people on LinkedIn. So maybe it's worth to think about, how can I make my employees more likely to reshare my content? And another interesting factor on LinkedIn, surely it's mainly used by the very active population. So after university, when you're looking for a job, but now they have included several different features, and it is becoming more and more interactive and more interesting. And just to show you this, these statistics, so you see LinkedIn is the one that people trust the most. This is a trust score. And remember on the last video, we spoke about trust? Well, this is probably one of the reasons why LinkedIn has grown so much in the last couple of years. Right. Okay. So we have looked at social media channels, and now we look at messaging apps. And for example, here in Europe, you can see the majority are using WhatsApp. In some remote places, they are still using Viber. I think that not many people are using Viber anymore. And in some specific countries, people use Facebook Messenger more than WhatsApp. But WhatsApp can also be a very good tool to communicate. For example, I'm in a WhatsApp group from Soy Ecoturista, which is the association of businesses that have ecotourism businesses. And they publish on a daily basis very interesting content. They have created this sense of community. They exchange ideas with each other all the time. They exchange activities that they are doing. And now that they're all going through this crisis, I mean, more than ever, I see people coming together, uniting, and they use WhatsApp for that. So there might be also a good idea for you and some of your stakeholders. Okay, so tips for social media. Choose wisely the platform you invest time based on who you want to achieve, who you want to reach out. Incentivize your employees to publish and use short links. That's also important. And use hashtags to tag people. So don't just exist, be relevant, be engaging, be helpful, give people content that they value. And why not give access to your colleagues? I mean, if you have a park ranger that goes out to the field every day and it doesn't have the sign-in of your Instagram account, well, maybe you should reconsider, because he is the one who is there in the front line doing the great content, capturing the great moments. But also be wise enough to spread your content and don't overload, because if a person is constantly always receiving information from the same person, like a person who publishes 5 times on Facebook per day, I'll probably delete it or just remove my like. So be wise. We suggest 1 post per day to maximum, but it's not necessary to be more than that. And then, of course, interact and follow the analytics. So then interpretation. As I told you, there will be a specific model on interpretation. So I'll just go very briefly. You need to take care of your interpretation panels and ensure that your brand is there on a consistent way. So if there are brand guidelines, just follow them or ask a proper designer to create compelling panels. And Carol Ritchie will tell you all about this later on. And of course, work with your rangers. I love this photo. This is from 1918, and these were the first group of rangers in Picos de Europa, which was the first national park created in Spain. So this is certainly, our park rangers now look more sexy and friendly, hopefully, but there are many other personal competencies that our guides should have, our rangers should have, but we'll learn all about this later on. What I also found interesting was the National Park Services of the United States. They have created a manual to communicate the parks, all the national parks. And so these are 12 things you can do today. Wear your uniform, adopt the new graphic standards, listen to your self-talk, because what you say will really have an impact on what people will perceive, how people will experience this tour in the park. Seek for opinions, review your publications, and be an ambassador. Okay, and now I would like to take you to a total different area. Let's take a look at apps and the power of apps. Well, I bring you 2 specific examples. From the Plitvice Lakes, I'm sorry for our Croatian friends, I don't really know how to say this. But basically, this is one of the most visited parks in Croatia. I mean, so much that they had to create tours and trails that people can only go on one side. So they avoid people coming back, and much harder to manage. And so what they understood is, okay, we need to give people some more tools, and they provide them an app that works also offline, where you can see all the trails available, but also see many other things like alerts and things that you should visit or see, with some information about the most interesting viewpoints. So there are a lot of parks doing this kind of apps. Then there is a very interesting one. This is something produced by WWF Armenia to raise awareness on leopards. So leopards are very hard to find, are a species very hard to find in the wild. So what they have done, they have made a partnership with Arlupa, which they were some app developers. They have created these big reference points, and then with a mobile app, you could photograph these pointers, these markers, and a leopard will appear in front of you. And with the camera, with the app, you could take a photo with him. So basically what they have made a contest for people to take their photos. And this is, I think this was one of the winners. And this is Neil McIntosh in our Europark conference with a little marker. So then the leopard will correspond to the size of the marker. If you would like to have a real size leopard, you'd have to be a marker so big. But this augmented reality really put the leopard in the news and in the mouth of everyone. So everyone was talking about it, and it was not so expensive for them either, because the app providers were also interested in being more known. So over 300 photos and posts posted on social media, over 20,000 scans using the app. And well, yeah, this generated a lot of information about the park, a lot of story. Then, public events and volunteering activities. I'm sure that you know this much better than I do myself. So my approach is, well, we either take people to nature, right? And we do a guided tour or some special observation or some special feature in the park, or we can even organize something bigger for the community like this event. Or if you cannot bring people to nature, well, take nature to people. And this means, for example, this was an activity that it was in a big city. We are too far away from the protected area. So we decided, well, let's just empower people anyway. Let's give them trees. We have planted the seed. And the idea was the tree grows and then the kids can go to the park and plant it. And then, for example, this is another good example of a big communication event. Every year, a group of scientists, musicians, and communicators, they come together and they organize the Nature Concert Hall. This is an event in Latvia, happens every year, and every year they focus on a different species. And the event will occur in the place where the species is evident. And then during the day, they do a lot of workshops, scientific workshops, to bring people closer to nature and to understand the habitat or the specific characteristics of these species that was chosen this year. And then they create beautiful art performances and music performances. There is a video for you to watch in the further resources if you are interested. Right, and then of course, getting people's hands dirty. That's what volunteering is all about. Planting trees, helping monitoring, collecting garbage. So there is a wide range of public events that you can organize and volunteering activities that will certainly help you building these more personal connections with your main audiences. Right, and this also applies to environmental education and citizen science. For example, we have a program that is called the Junior Ranger Program, and it basically consists on a group of young people that meet regularly on their park to do different conservation activities, from monitoring to cleaning bushes to whatever. The sky is the limit. Here, there is also a nice, interesting video that we collected, kind of inspiration from our junior rangers across Europe, which I really advise you to take a look. Maybe many of you already have heard about the Junior Ranger program, but if not, this is a good opportunity. And of course, citizen science. For those who don't know, there is a Citizen Science Association. They have published the 10 principles of citizen science, also downloadable here. And they will definitely have a lot of resources to help you out creating your citizen science projects. And finally, games. Well, games also play an important role. You can go to a normal table game, for example, from like this one, Who Goes Where, from Montagne de Reims in France, or an online game. So, for example, this one, it's a very recent one. It was produced by the Portuguese government to teach people about the coronavirus. So it shares relevant information in a funny and engaging way. So games are also interesting to consider. Right, local products. Well, there are many parks who support the local producers. Like, for example, this is a peer exhibition in France, and the idea is to promote the engagement of the local farmers. But local products can also be very well-known products like Milka. And this is an interesting case of cooperation between Milka and the National Park Höhe in Austria. And basically, Milka wants to say that, well, their cows live green. Lila lebt grün. So they want people to understand that, no, they are really committed to nature. Their cows are happy cows that are in the Alps. And at the same time, Höhe certainly gets a very good amount of money because of this. So it's a kind of win-win situation. And Höhe, they have a very interesting way of sponsorship, this kind of matching with the businesses, which actually doesn't have to be a problem. And for many conservation organizations, this is a problem, but it doesn't. It can really create interesting opportunities for the parks. So do consider which well-known brands are there in your country. Maybe that could be a possibility as well. Right, so we have gone around many ideas and tools. And now it's your turn. So, takeaway messages. Different audiences require different channels. Produce great content, but think about a multi-platform experience. So think, okay, maybe I'll do a challenge on Instagram because that's how people really interact. And I will just do a small post on Facebook. And I will still keep this information on my website, and I create a brochure about this as well to deliver in my visitor center. So think widely, think about all the different tools that you can use for one single purpose campaign. And surely adapt your campaign to these different media, ensuring consistency. And that's all for today. I thank you very much for your attention. And I just have some important information regarding our webinar. I hope you can join us on Wednesday. So we will learn about your last assignment, which will be very exciting because you will be the one doing your own communications campaign. Well, keep tuned and good communications. Bye-bye.